Hey, it's Sky Nicholson, and I am back with the Elemental Alchemy guided journal that I wrote several years ago and am going through in real time and doing the prompts to get myself unstuck. Today, instead of tea, I am drinking coffee out of my little fox cup. So today we are going to start in the air element. So after fire is air, speaking your truth, opening up your voice and allowing who you are to actually come out from inside of you out into the world. Like in science, when you have a matter that is a gas, like it expands to fill the room. And so I feel that once we start speaking our truths, that truth expands to fill the room. It impacts everybody else that comes across it. We've got a word bank here that can help you get started. So all of these words that are related to the element of air: harmonize, genuine, wispy, cleanse, voice, light, sing, purge, integrity, clear, shout, openness, breathe, melody. I am going to go to the second prompt in the element of air. This prompt is related to that metaphor of the gas filling up the room, right? Taking space. So this prompt says, make room. How does it feel to take up space? Do you feel comfortable taking up space in a room, or would you rather shrink and make yourself less visible? What might happen if you allowed yourself to spread out and be heard? I mean, there's a reason that this is the second prompt in air, because this is something that I have struggled with for a long time, which may seem surprising because I'm out here like making videos on YouTube. I first began writing poetry as an adult after I took alcohol out of the driver's seat of my life 8.5 years ago. I would write these poems. I don't know, poems just started coming out of me, I guess you could say. I just felt like I had to write them. I felt like I had all of this stuff inside of me that needed to get out. Like I wanted to tell my story. I was really into reading these sobriety memoirs at the time, and I wanted to tell my story, but I couldn't just tell it. I couldn't tell it in this chronological way. Like that wasn't working for me. And so I started writing these poems, and the poems, like they just, I don't know, they just started coming out. It's like as the words came out, like the words took with them a lot of the negative emotions or the stuck energy from all of those years of drinking, all of the things like shame and regret and guilt and sadness and anger. Those emotions came out like attached to the words. And so as I started putting my words out into the world, I started a blog. I like used a pseudonym because I don't know, it was still pretty raw. And as I started putting this stuff out into the world, finally speaking my truth in a very raw and vulnerable way, having to release myself from whether or not people liked the poems or they got shared or comments or likes or views or all the things, I let go of all of that, or am working on letting go of all of that, and realizing that the words will get out there and they will find the people that need to find them. Like even with these videos, the people that it doesn't resonate with, well, they'll swipe and they'll pass it by. But if you need to hear this stuff right now, then you'll keep watching. Even writing this journal was a way of sending it out there so that if anybody needed it, they could find it. So I'm going to take my coffee and I'm going to take my journal, and let's write about taking up space. Ooh, yeah. This brought up some stuff. I used to feel like I wanted to shrink and become invisible. So I very distinctly remember a summer school class in college. I was sitting there and I just like this feeling of hot. Like I felt so hot. Like I felt like I was this glowing thing and that everybody would be looking at me and judging me. That feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. I just wanted to become invisible. When I was in high school, I did a lot of theater. Part of why I loved that theater and public speaking was because, I wrote this in the journal. It gave me a purpose to be seen. It wasn't just like vulnerable, raw me. It was the character or the thing I was talking about. And so in those instances, it felt great to take up space and fill the room. Like I was so worried about people seeing the real me and judging it, or I was worried that the real me wasn't worthy of love, respect. And I know that that's a lot of why I drank because I could quiet those voices of self criticism and self judgment or fear of judgment. And I could take up all the space. So when I was drinking, I was taking up all of the space. I was very loud. My voice was booming, but I wasn't saying anything worthwhile. I was I was just being I was just taking up space. And in the moment, it felt good. And like this prompt kind of made me realize that the actual need was to be genuine, to take up space in a genuine way rather than in that false bravado way that alcohol provided. And so when I stopped drinking, I was actually able to begin to learn how to love myself and give myself permission to put myself out there in a more genuine way. And it's funny because as a teacher, I didn't have that when I was standing in front of the classroom. I didn't have those same feelings of fear of judgment, even though probably all of those teenagers were sitting there in their rows judging the shit out of me. 'Cause that's what teenagers do. But I didn't have that same fear of judgment as I did, like, say, if I was out in a social setting, just being Sky. I wrote that now I'm okay with being heard. So I can put myself out there in these ways, like in these videos and in my writing. There's always that critical voice. The same one from my past is still there and I can hear it. I can hear the critical voice. Some people say like imposter syndrome, or my friend Beth says the little critic that sits on your shoulder. So I can hear it, but I've learned to think of it as a frightened child and treat it as such, realizing that critic doesn't have the power unless I give it the power. I can put it in the back seat and I can buckle it into its 5-point harness and tell it, hey, it's okay. You're not in charge here. I am driving the bus. You just sit there. You can be as critical as you want, but you're in the back seat. So you don't control what I do or say or feel anymore. And that has really helped me to be able to believe in myself. I think how I got there was through learning how to listen to myself. So when I began the practice of meditation, either sitting meditation, walking meditation, going into nature and really getting quiet, doing the practice of yoga, the different things I've done to be able to listen to myself so I can discern the difference between my true voice and the critical voice and the voices of judgment and fear. It's not always easy. I think that there are many times where the voices of judgment and fear start to take over. And I think that's only normal. That's just part of being a human. But I trust now that I can find my true voice and allow it to be the one that guides what I say and do. Whew, that one was heavy. So we'll get more into the air element next time. In the meantime, if you would like to join me and follow along in your copy of Elemental Alchemy, the link to order it is in the video description. And if you are following along, I'd love to hear from you. How do you feel about taking up space or speaking your truth? Has it changed for you as you've gone on your personal journey? Stepping away from things that numb me has really enabled me to hear my own voice better. All right, I will see you next time. Keep writing.